So we have Mane. I pronounced your name right?
Yeah, Mane.
Where you from? Where'd you grow up?
So, where am I from? I haven't had to answer that question in a minute. Where am I from? I'm from Cameroon.
That's West Africa, yeah?
Yes. So my dad is from the Northwest Province, and my mom is from Kumba. Is that Northwest Province too?
I believe that's Southwest.
Southwest, okay.
So it makes it both.
Yeah, so I always have a hard time answering that question because I'm like, okay, but I am more connected to the Northwest Province because I have been there multiple times. I haven't been to Kumba. So yeah, I identify as from the Northwest Province.
How was life like growing up in Cameroon? Like, how would you explain your childhood? What was your childhood like?
I would say that my parents provided for everything we needed more than the things that we wanted. So things like a roof over your head, food to eat, a place to sleep, it was a decent, comfortable life up until I got to boarding school. And when you go to boarding school, you see other kids have X, Y, Z, and you're like, you want that too. So my dad was always of the idea that make the list of your essentials first, and then if there is money left over, then you can get the things that you want. But he needs to be able to cover the needs first, and then the wants later. So yeah, I would say that I grew up, getting everything that I needed, and then whatever I wanted was, a hit or miss.
So you grew up in both parents' household. Was there any, like, academic-wise, were you a good student?
Yes, I would say I was an average student. I wasn't the first five kind of, but I would say I was between 10 to 20.
Was it based on what you saw your parents doing or siblings that motivated you? It was like, hey, dad and mom, they've been through this, or siblings, I gotta step up, or
I would say maybe it's being the first. I'm the first child, so it was almost like you have to set the example. I don't know much about my parents' schooling. I mean, I know that they had a college degree, and my dad had a bunch of certifications, but they never really talked about being the smartest or the brightest or the top five. But and I want to say that some things came to me easy academic wise. I didn't feel like I struggled in school. So but yeah, I would say back home I was an average student.
What was it about, like, even now, being a first kid? Is there any kind of pressure? Not only being a first kid, but being an African first kid. Ooh. Raised in a Cameroonian household. What kind of pressures come with that?
Oh my goodness, where do I start? A lot, especially being a girl child. There is that pressure to succeed, but don't be too successful because a man may not like you.
Wow.
But you gotta set the example for your younger brothers, because if they don't see you succeed, then they will not value it. So back home, the pressure wasn't as hard until we got here, and it was more pressure. So it was like, okay, you have to become a doctor or a pharmacist because they make more money, they're more stable. But then you don't have to be too successful because a man will not want to feel threatened. So it was a hard place to be in, because I don't understand what you mean by too successful. Like, a doctor is a doctor, a pharmacist is a pharmacist.
Right.
So do you want me to have a higher degree than a college degree than you people did? I totally get that. But telling me to not be too successful, I don't get it.
Wow. When did you make that transition from Cameroon to United States?
2006.
Right around what, in terms of academic, high school, college?
Yeah, Form from 5.
So that's like, I want to say, just going into college here.
Yeah, because when I came here, so I did my O levels, and
Oh, so you went to the O levels.
yeah, I went to the O levels, and there was this back and forth between, because we lived in Douala, so there was this back and forth between Douala and Yaoundé doing paperwork to travel. So my dad, who still is very strong on education. He didn't want me to be disrupted while in school. So after Form 5, he said, you come home and go to a day school while we do the whole back and forth thing, because boarding school was quite expensive. And he wanted me to get the full benefit if he was going to pay for it. So I did 1 year in day school, yes, while we did the whole back and forth. Then when we got here, I didn't have to go to high school. So I took the college entrance, something, and I went to a community college.
Was there any temptation for you, like knowing, hey, I'm about to migrate to the United States to get lazy?
Yes, especially the move from boarding school to day school, because boarding school is structured, right? You wake up at 5, you have things to do, you go to class, you have class, and all of that. So it was very structured. And the time when I moved home for day school, my mom had just traveled to the US. So being the first girl child, I mean, I had 2 older cousins at home helping, but there was still that pressure of being the first girl child. So having to manage school sort of on my own schedule without somebody telling me that this is your schedule, you wake up at this time, it's practice. So it was hard doing school and then coming back home and, you know, cleaning, laundry and all of that. So I actually failed the final exam.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't because I wasn't, what's the word? I wouldn't say it was because I was dumb. I just knew that this thing is,
It's not,
it's just a thing. So, yeah, I did fail to go to Upper C, but I was like, not really a thing. So, the time we thought we were going to travel did not happen. So I was thinking that, oh, because it's Cameroon, they would just move me to the next class because I wasn't really. My dad was like, nope, you are going to repeat that class. Yes, so I did repeat the class for a semester, a term, which is what we call it. And then after that, we were here.
Walk me through, like, the transition. How was that like for you?
It was challenging, I would say. We came here in the summer, I think July. Yes. So it was nice and warm. I thought that we would have like, you know, a couple of months to just get used to it, but no. My dad was like, next semester starts in August. You have to get things you have to get things together in time to start in August. And I looked at him like, I mean, my dad is, you know, education. He always said that, I think it's Nelson Mandela who made this quote, education is the one thing nobody can take away from you. So when it came to education, you know, here is food on it. So August, my first class was in the morning, 8 a.m. I wasn't driving. So I had to wake up about 6 o'clock, you know, go stand on the road and take the bus, like 2 buses to get to the community college. And I remember my very first class was an African-American male instructor who is actually my mentor today, over 10 years later. So when I walked into the class, I was looking for somebody who looked African.
Yo.
Because I needed to find
What is somebody who look African?
I don't know, but I do remember that I was looking for that.
Yeah.
So I sat at the back of the class in an angle so I could see, you know, everybody. So when it came time to introduce, and I also did that because I was hoping that if they would ask questions, I would not be picked on to answer a question, or if everybody was going around, you know, taking turns to talk, I'll be the last one. So by then I would have, you know, figured out what to say and how to say it and all of that. So, and also I was listening for the accent to see if I could, you know, connect. And that semester went by really well. The instructor actually said that I have a good way of presenting information. I just need to be confident in my ability to present it. And when he said that, my thought was for somebody to see me for the first time and see something in me that I did not see, I felt like he would help me grow through, through my stay here. So I took that class it was actually a speech class. Yeah, it was started as a speech class, but it changed to a communication class. And the second semester, I signed up for 1 or 2 of that class, and it turned out to still be him teaching it. It's like, okay, if we meet again, then there's something, in you for me. And I decided to ask him if he could be my mentor, and he said, yeah.
Because I know in Cameroon, there isn't like too many options in terms of like you going to school, A level, O level. I'm going to do marine biology. I'm going to be an engineer. I'm going to do communications, things like that. It's pretty much you're limited in options.
Yeah.
So was there any plan, thought to did you have an idea what the trajectory of your life would be? Even entrepreneurship, like school was was school the only thing?
Funny thing is, I knew that I wanted to work in healthcare, but I knew that I did not want to work in a hospital. Because growing up as a kid, I did not like hospitals. I did not like medications, syringes, anything hospital related I did not like. So I knew that pharmacy, doctor, or nursing wasn't in the line for me. But I did not know what exactly I wanted to do. But because my parents and my aunties, because 2 of my aunts are actually pharmacists, that's all I heard. So I said, worst case scenario, I guess that's what I'll become. But deep down, I knew that it's not for me.
What 2 biggest culture shocks for you from a Cameroonian young lady to now living in the United States, going to school? I think one was already, being in the classroom, not finding people who look like you, come from your background. What was another one would you say that it's like, wow?
I would say the independence at a younger age. Because back home, you could stay in your parents' house until thy kingdom come, until you get married and then. But here, I'm being in school during breaks between my classes, I would hear people talk of, oh, I live alone, and I'm like, how old are you? So and also the kind of the separation from the family, like, okay, it's me against the world kind of thing, as opposed to, together we can conquer this. I think that was one thing that I could not understand that.
What kind of thoughts or expectations does that put on you? Does that make you like, hey, I appreciate the community more, or it's like, maybe there's something here that I could glean from?
So because initially I was more appreciated because that's all I knew. How can you go through life without the support of the community? And even to this day, I still do appreciate the support of the community. But how do I say this? It can also feel like a restriction to a certain extent. However, I would say that if you feel like you are restricted, then there is a way to go about it without completely alienating the community. And I think one thing I only learned over 10 years later is setting boundaries, which our African parents don't get. But yeah, it's a mix. It's a mix of when and how to go about it. Because I know that when I did community college for 2 years, then I went to undergrad. Undergrad was about an hour away. I went to Towson University. So I could not commute back and forth for classes. So I found an apartment off campus where I was staying there Monday to Friday. Then after my last class on Friday, I'll go back home because I work the weekends. So that whole mix of during the week, I could get back home whenever I wanted. I mean, not like I'm an introvert, so I'm not a social butterfly. So if I got home late, it's probably because I was in the library but I didn't have to say that, okay, I'm coming back late and because I'll be blah, blah, blah. But also coming back home allowed me to be, how can I say? Because I'm living in somebody's house, I felt like the least I could do is communicate that. So I wasn't restricted per se, but that whole idea of, okay, I will not be home, or I'm going out this weekend, or I'm going for a friend's days, or I'm having a sleepover. It's, I think it taught me to be more communicative, rather than just, going through life like I own life.
Yeah.
So.
So was your job going to Towson Monday through Friday, coming home working the weekend? Was that your first job here?
Yes. So my first job was working in retail in Target, actually. So we got here July 2006, October 2006. They were hiring it was a holiday season. So they were hiring for, what's the holiday in October? Halloween, yes.
Halloween, yeah.
Because you have Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, Valentine's Day, Easter, so all of that. So they were hiring for that, and that's how I got a job. And then from there, and I got a job working Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Making how much?
$7.25.
Stocking shelves, things like that.
I was hired for the register, but when it was slow, they had us go back to, rearrange. And the thing about Target, you had to fold those shirts on a line.
Wow.
Yeah. Sometimes we were there I used to work 6 till close. Sometimes we were there till like 1, 2 a.m. because you had to put the socks together, the shoes had to all face in one direction. And I was like, wow, okay. I mean, it's good to have a job, but is it this serious? But yeah, so from Target, I went to Burlington. And at this time, I was in Towson. So Burlington was a little bit more flexible with my school schedule. So sometimes I would work only Saturday or Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or only Sunday. So Target was more, back then, Target was more strict. And also it was my first experience of, changing jobs, knowing when to and how to, and also advocating for yourself. Because I know when I went to Target, when I moved to Burlington, I made about 75 cents more. And I was like, okay, this is good.
Moving on up.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, when I was in Towson, I would drive back, work in Burlington, then drive back to Towson on Sunday.
School-wise, what you had the fear of syringes, doctor, all that stuff.
And I still do to this day.
And you were occupational therapist.
Yes.
What was the thought like going into that career field? Like, how did you land there?
Okay. So what was I doing before? In community college, I signed up for pre-pharmacy. So the first 2 semesters, I took pre-pharmacy courses, chemistry, physics, and all of that. And I remember not liking chemistry, physics, and math back home. So that was already a confirmation that this healthcare thing is not going to work for me. But the comments I was hearing was, well, you don't have to like it to do it. Just do it because there's money in it. And I said, okay. So I stayed for the entire 2 years as a pre-pharmacy major. But then at the last semester of the second year, I took a career assessment course in the I think it's Career Advancement Center in the school. And it pretty much showed me that my personality and skills are geared towards the allied health, which is physical therapy, occupational therapy, nutritionist, dietitian, respiratory therapy, and I think social work. So those were the areas that my strengths were in. But I did not know what to do with that information.
Yeah.
So it was the summer of 2009. Yes, okay. So my youngest brother was born with a developmental disability. He's actually the reason why my dad was so adamant about us leaving Cameroon.
So he was born
In
like
Cameroon.
Okay.
Yes. So he was actually the reason my dad, most especially, but both parents were adamant about us leaving Cameroon to further our education, because my dad traveled a lot for work. He went to Germany, France. He actually studied in Nigeria for a little bit, and I think London at some point. So he saw how education was different and better in all these other countries compared to Cameroon. So his goal of getting us out was more for my youngest brother, to give him the opportunity to, despite his, should I say limitations or his limited ability, still give him the opportunity to try at something, because Africa kind of like just shuts you down or dismisses you. So summer of 2009, when we got here, he was enrolled into special needs education. So his that semester, his reports. So backstory, I love to read. I would read anything. I would read a newspaper, a sales visit. Like, I would read the fine print. Not necessarily because I want to know. It's just, okay, what can I learn from that? So this summer, his report was on the table. So I said, okay, let me see what special education is all about. And then he had occupational therapy goals. And some of the goals were he will be able to express something by himself. He will be able to make a breakfast sandwich by himself and things like that. So that to me was like, wait, but he has a disability. To me, I understood disability to be like, is a cap, you know, this is what it's going to be for the rest of his life. But seeing that had me like, okay. So somebody with a disability can still learn to do X, Y, Z. So I went to the desktop and I Googled, what is occupational therapy? And for some reason, it felt like bells and whistles just went off. And I said, I want to do this. Well, back then, when you Google occupational therapy, physical therapy will come up. But when I read the job description, I was like, nah, this is not what I'm looking for. So I don't know how I did the search, but then occupational therapy came up. And I said, okay, this sounds like something I want to do. But then how do I tell my parents that this is what I want to do?
You don't want to be a doctor. Yeah.
Because even to this day, you know, African parents do not know what it is. They don't get it. So guess what? I didn't tell them. I mean, I transferred to a 4-year university to study occupational therapy, and I did not tell them. So the whole time they were like, how is your PCAT and MCAT coming along? I was like, oh, great. But I was in school studying pre-occupational therapy.
Wow.
Yeah.
When did they find out?
Good question. So when I transferred to Towson, the advisor I had, I don't know if it was a mistake, but I was enrolled into biology for general education as opposed to biology for professional students. So when it came time to apply to the occupational therapy program, I was lacking in that course. And I was like, this is not my fault. I did not choose the classes to sign up for. So the counselor of the dean of the program or something said, well, you would have to wait out 1 year to take the class in order to. And I said, no, I don't have a year to lose. What can I do in order to apply to the program the following year? And he said nothing. I mean, too many things went through my head, because the school at the time, I don't know what it is like now, but it was a predominantly white school. And the first thing that went through my head was, okay, did they do this on purpose? Like, I mean, my transcript literally said pre-occupational therapy, so why did you sign me up for biology for general students? Now, at this point, it was, I mean, no amount of fussing would change the fact that I had to wait 1 year. So I went to Google and I said, what major can I graduate in that would still allow me, because at this point, Towson had the combined bachelor's and master's degree level occupational, which was 5 years. But I was applying to the 2-year because I already had 2 years community college, 2 years undergrad. So I would do 2 years for the master's. But since I didn't have the biology, it would take me 3 years. And I did not want to do that. So the only other option was to complete an undergrad in psychology, which is a prerequisite for a master's. So that's what I did. I changed my major from from pre-occupational therapy to major in pharmacy and then minor in pre-occupational therapy. So during graduation, well, as graduation was approaching, they had to mail your, and I still, well, at this point I live with my aunt, but my address was still going to my parents' house. So I was trying to pick up the letter and not have it mailed. And then I know they have to confirm my address. So when my, what's that thing, the degree, when it comes out, and I was like, okay. So it was mailed home. And I got the call. It's like, psychology, white people's jobs. And I'm like, can I explain? So God forgive me, I lied. I said that that I did not qualify to get into the program because my GPA was low, which was a lie. My GPA was a 3.8. And I said they were looking for a 3.9. I don't even know what GPA they were looking for because I did not try to apply. So when I said that, they looked at me like, you're not a dumb student. I'm like, no, I'm not. I just did not have a 3.9 GPA, so I did not qualify.
By 1 point.
So they were like, okay, are you going to reapply?
Wow.
I said, no, I don't think so. Because it's, 4 years? And truth is, I don't like it. They're like, what do you know? What do you like? Successful people like doctors and pharmacists. Like, back then, I did not get their point. But what helped me get their point is in grad school, I, went to therapy and I understood that what they really wanted from me was for me to be successful enough to be able to care for myself.
Right.
But for them, their idea of success was, pharmacy or doctor. Not so much that there were other professions that you could be successful at. So when I said I wasn't, going for doctor of pharmacy, it was like the whole world went quiet. And they were not going to come for my graduation. I was like, fine, I'm walking that stage.
Wow.
I am walking that stage. So I think a couple of days to the graduation, I was coming back home from work. I was in a car accident. A tractor trailer, rear-ended me. And I was in so much pain. But I said, you know what, I'm going to walk across that stage, even if it means limping. Psychology, nobody gets it, but I actually loved it. And it has helped me a lot in understanding people, the mindset, and, how I ended up in occupational therapy. So I don't regret making, it was a hard choice to make and having to deal with everybody like white people job. But yeah, I don't regret that choice.
I think for as long as I've known you, you've been in occupational therapy.
Yes.
So you've had a successful career in it.
I have.
And I would not only define success as in monetary, being able to support yourself, you have a house, car, all that stuff, but actually be happy in it.
I love it.
Walk me through, you've graduated, you got your, diploma and everything. Of course, family's going to come around.
Yeah.
They always do. We thank God for that. Navigating, getting your first job. And before that, the difference, from that Google search between physical therapy, which is where my mind or somebody else's mind might be going to, and occupational therapy with psychology.
Okay. So, actually, before going there, I would like to talk about the whole grad school experience because I did grad school in 2012. And even to this day, it's blacks are the minority in the profession. About 5%. I may be wrong on that, but yeah, we're still the minority. So in my class of 22, I think there were only three or four blacks, and initially it was two Africans, and then I'm the only one who ended up, well, no, three. Let me say this: 6 blacks, 3 Africans, and 3 African Americans. And at the end of the program, only 2 of us graduated. So it was also a white people profession, because dealing with the whole psychology being a occupational therapy also was only so it was hard in grad school, because I would do presentations, I would type them up in my group, and then they would go ahead and present it without me, knowing that I put a lot of the work in it. Then when it came time for us to do individual presentations, the teacher, so you had to submit the presentation for the teacher to review, and the teacher would say, oh, one of your classmates did a really great job in presenting, and then she puts it up on the slide, but she would not say who did it. So to me, I was like, okay, why not identify the student who did the work? Why leave it? Only for her to come back behind and say, oh, would you present to the first year student because your layout is, and yeah, there were nights I cried myself to sleep, because I was like, what did I make it? I loved the courses, but then I wondered if I really made the right choice, because, I'm only black person in a, in a white person profession. And I think I kind of missed your question.
The difference between, and it's funny because you mentioned that, because the doctor, everything is like, hey, that's white people's job, but then occupational therapy psychologist, like, hey, I'm the only white person here. But difference between physical therapy, psychology, occupational therapy.
Okay, so psychology, because I did it at the undergrad level, is really understanding the mind and its influence in choices, what we do, why we do what we do. And sometimes I believe that helped me a lot, because people can tell you a lot about themselves without really saying anything. And then you can ask questions in a certain way to get an answer or to confirm an answer. For example, I can ask somebody that, how old are you? If you tell me the correct age, and I ask you what year were you born in, you will not have to think too much to answer that question. Now, if you think too much, there is kind of a chance that you're trying to lie or you're trying to hide something. And then if you give me the year in which you were born and it doesn't correspond with the age that you gave me, then now the person answering the question may not know that I asked that way for a reason.
All right.
So there was a lot of, play that you can get to know somebody or figure out something about somebody when you understand, psychology. Now, occupational therapy, in a nutshell, helps people live life out the best way possible, despite their limitations. So say, for example, somebody has a stroke and then they lose function on one side of their body. You can retrain them to still function with compensatory strategies. Or if they have a caregiver, you can show them ways to help them, but still let them be more independent. Now, physical therapy really works so both profession works on your strength, your balance, and your endurance. Physical therapy's focus is, balance, alignment, longer distance walk. Occupational therapy can be like, okay, can you walk from your kitchen to your living room, or from your bathroom to your bedroom? Physical therapy can be much longer. If your parallel of function was taking long walks outside, they could set a goal for that. So there was a point where they intertwine, but then there was a point where they're really different. In a layman's term, from somebody looking on the outside, they will say, oh, occupational therapy works on your arms, physical therapy works on the legs. But there are certifications that you can, physical therapists can get a certification in working with hands. But hands is really an occupational therapy thing. So there's a lot of, I don't want to say clash, but there's a place where they intertwine. But then there are differences.
Was it easy breaking into the field? Having gone through college, higher education, being the only black woman in your classes and things like that.
I think back then it was easy because they were actually looking for people to come into the program. But
regardless of background.
Yeah, regardless
they just
of
needed, hey, we need occupational therapist.
And also some schools got some kind of funding if they had black students.
Is that the case still now? Like we need occupational therapists, or it's saturated, would you say?
Based on research, I think the most recent research I saw is it is projected to grow more up to it's one of the top 4 careers, and it's projected to grow more. However, the climate of, what do I call it? The government, because they're constantly cutting costs, and companies that own, how can I say, companies that
like hold the contracts and things.
Yes, are, for lack of a better word, greedy, because they still want to continue to make profit despite the cuts. So they are overworking the therapists, and other people are quitting. And to be honest, there came a time where I thought about quitting, but then again I said, what would I do? Because like I said, in as much as there are challenging days, it is something I look forward to. Like I wake up, I go to work, it could be stressful, I go home, go to sleep, wake up the next morning, and I'm looking forward to how I can help somebody live life easy. And it's sometimes I see it as a very little things, because I'm able to just roll out of bed and go about my day. But showing somebody how to slowly roll out of bed, and then they are able to do it for themselves, and they can thank you so much for so long that you think that you worked a miracle, but all you did is show them the techniques to make it easier. Another one could be, okay, they have back pain, neck pain from sleeping poorly in bed. Just adjust them, put a few pillows here and there, and they're like, where have you been all my life?
All right.
It's the easiest thing. Another thing that I find really interesting is when doing an assessment, I would ask a patient, can you raise your hands above your head? And they're like, nope. I'm like, can you try? They're like, I cannot. So I'll take a balloon, bolo, and I'm like, can you catch this for me? I'll toss it as high as possible, and guess what? The hands go flying and they catch it. So there goes my assessment. They can raise their hands above their head, because I know that they can raise their hands to put on a shirt or to get something off the cabinet. So it's interesting how you can find out so many things about people without them knowing that that's what you're doing.
That's where that psychology comes into play.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. I need an occupational therapist and a physical therapist, everybody. I actually went through physical therapy for a year, and I'm tired, but I took a break and we'll go back, but it's not about me. I want to get into like you say, you enjoy doing what you do, and that's like the emotional part of it, which is great, finding something that you're passionate about. Like they say, if you do what you love, you're not going to feel like you're working, a day in your life.
Yep.
But of course, we live in America. It's capitalism, and you got to buy a car.
Yes.
You got to buy a house.
You got to live.
You got to live, right? Going into it at a time when people were needed, and now having spent, I don't know what,
8
years.
Almost 9, yeah.
How has it been financially, the growth for you? Despite, companies cutting costs and things like that.
So when I first researched about it, I was not looking for how much they made. I just knew that based on what my youngest brother's school report was, I knew that I wanted to help people be as independent as possible, despite any limitations. So I did not look up the salary up until I think graduation. So my parents were in the hall, and the dean, she described it. She said, oh, they make so and so now. They are projected to make X, Y, Z. So while in the ceremony, in the reception hall, my dad was like, oh, I didn't know that people can make as much as pharmacists. And I was like, do they? So I went through 3 years of the program without really looking up how much they made. So starting off, I just accepted whatever was offered, which was $37 Yeah, 37 in 2015.
That's an hour.
Yeah, 37. So I was like, right out of grad school, I used to make, $8 an hour working retail. And I actually worked with individuals with disability in a residential setting before I got into occupational therapy, which was $10 an hour. So that jumped from 10 to 37. I was like, oh yeah. 90 days into that, I got a review, and then I got a raise to 39. Now, between then and pre-pandemic, the company that came in, because the thing with therapy too is that they're mostly contract companies. So owners of nursing homes. So companies are constantly changing contracts to see, the best deal they can get. So new companies will come in and they will not want to increase because maybe you build other company that did like an annual review and gave you a raise. From 2016 to 2019, before the pandemic, the companies that came in were trying to cut costs. And I felt like, the longer you're somewhere, you should be going up, not going backwards. So I got into reading, books about not so much entrepreneur, not so much like having a business or so, but how can I grow professionally? And, some recommendations were, well, in some cases you would have to change jobs to, make more money and all of that. And I really did not want to change because it was comfortable. My drive there was easy. And pandemic hit, and you would think that, companies would give you incentives because you're putting your life on the line, and nope, they cut more. So I said, no, this is not working for me because they're cutting your pay, but your cost of living is not going down. So I started researching on ways to grow more. And I said, and I learned that you would have to advocate for yourself. You would have to sell yourself. And that's really how I started to grow professionally, because I believed that I provided, great skills. It's not like I was just asking for more money because I had worked longer. I knew what I was, quote unquote, bringing to the table. So I was like, you meet me somewhere. And the sad thing is, the first company I worked for were therapists. So they understood what we do. But the companies that came after, the owners, none of them were therapists. So they have no idea what we do. So for them to cut cost without really understanding what we put into the work, that to me felt like it's a disregard of what we do. So first I went up and asked for a raise. And they're like, oh, we'll look into it. From his body language, I knew that, it was just like a way of brushing me off. And I said, okay, I have to figure another way out. Change is hard. There was no way I was going about, looking for another job, but I could not stay there because I felt like I wasn't growing. So yeah, I set out to, start looking for other jobs.
And you've since doubled your salary.
Yes.
Yeah. What is your like trajectory in terms of like I can tell you locked in. It's like occupational therapy for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
What is your trajectory, both personally, like career goals wise, and in the industry, like looking outside where you see it?
So in the industry, staying a W-2 employee is going to be limiting. Being an independent contractor is going to require you to learn a lot and figure out how you want to go about it. Now, being a W-2, you're under a lot of company constraints. Like they're loading you up with a bunch of patients. You don't really have time to provide the quality service that you want to be able to provide. But then, I can understand that as a new grad, you want to be able to get some kind of experience. That way you can sell yourself better. But I think that the way that the profession is going to thrive is if we as therapists, Because I think that only us understand the value of what we do. Because occupational therapy is over 100 years old, but you still have people who don't know what we do. So I think that private practice is really the way to go, because you get to control your caseload. And if you can control your caseload, then you can provide better service. As opposed to having to see 10 to 16 patients in a day. Pre-pandemic, the max I saw a day was 6 patients a day, 1 hour each one. Worst case scenario, 1, like 7 or 8, but it was never more than 8. Pandemic hit, and then you're having double that in the same time frame. I remember the
quality of care you would provide stuff.
Like 30 minutes each, 30, 15. I remember what made me quit full-time work. This was 2022, yes.
Wait, you part-time?
Independent contractor.
Oh, independent. Sorry, yeah.
So, so this company I was working for, they lost the contract, and the incoming company. So there was already news going around that they're coming in, they're going to cut pay, and like I said, I had decided that I'm not doing any more any pay cuts. So, if being full-time meant getting a pay cut, then this is where working full-time ends for me. It was a scary decision to make, but I felt like for me to provide the best service, I would have to go independent contractor. So they came in for the interview, and the interviewer, what she said that actually ticked me off most. She said, oh, we've been dropping pay in the other companies. We're just maintaining your pay because we understand that most of you are quitting. And I said, you're maintaining my pay. I feel like I'm due for a raise. And she said, nope, 45 is all we can offer. I said, no, thank you. This is where it ends for me.
Yeah.
She said, well, today's Wednesday. We can give you till Friday to think about it. I said, okay. But I knew that, it was done for me. So I went that day after work. I packed my things and I took it home. Thursday, I came in. Friday, I came in. She called again. I said, no, I'm quitting. So I became a PRN, which is, at the time, well, it still is. PRN is $55 an hour. So I went from making 45 to 55 in like 2 days. Now, when I showed up to work on Monday, when I put in my schedule, it was 3 pages long. Everybody else had quit. They did not even go PRN. They were like, we're out of here. So I flipped it trying to see if I had printed the entire caseload for everybody else. But no, it was my name on page after page after page. And I took it to the regional because even the director of rehab had quit. I said, is this a mistake or am I missing something? He said, no, that's your caseload. And I said, and how is this humanly possible? He said, you're the clinician, you decide. I said, oh, okay, thank you. So, good thing is a couple of patients were out on appointments. Some were in dialysis and they were too tired for therapy. Okay, patient unavailable. But I think I ended up seeing like 14 patients. So I went from seeing 6 to 8 on a Friday to seeing 14 on a Monday. Now I don't get sick like that. But at the end of that day, I had a migraine. I felt like somebody was hitting a hammer to the back of my brain. I went home, went straight to bed. Tuesday, came back, it was the same thing. So I went to his office and I said, sir, I don't think this is humanly possible to do. And he said, well, you did it yesterday, so you can do it again today. I did it. Wednesday, I went to him, he said the same thing. So guess what, Thursday, this is 22, so I've probably been working for 6 years. In my 6 years of working, I had never called out. Even when I needed time off, I would give them like a month in advance. I rolled out of bed Thursday morning. I could not get out of bed because my head was still pounding. So I picked up my phone, tried to call. I could not talk. So I text. I said, I have a migraine. I will not be able to make it in. His reply was, oh, that's a disappointment. And I was like, you will not even ask me why I can't make it in? So when I read that text, I flipped my phone, put it on the pillow, and went back to sleep. At this point, I was like, well, I'm the only therapist, so I don't know where you're going to call. You would have to get on the floor and do the work. So when I woke up, he was like, oh, can you come in tomorrow? I did not reply. I said I could do 4 hours on Saturday, which this is the beauty of being PRN, because you can pick and choose the number of hours you want to do. However, you cannot decide how many patients, because in 4 hours, you can still give you 8 people, which is still unethical.
All right.
So I showed up Saturday, 4 people, 8 hours. And I was like, this is not going to work. So I did that, 3 to 4 hours. And I was like, no, it's not working for me. So I found a different PRN job with a different company that paid more. And they were not loading up people like that. So
That's where you're at.
Yep, that's where I am.
I find it fascinating when you mentioned, like, doing the research of, you mentioned that you read in the book about entrepreneurship and how much they're making, things like that. Somebody like me, I would have watched the YouTube video, and that speaks to what you said earlier, of your love for reading. I want to get, switch gears a little bit and get into, like, where that came from and what is it about books that you enjoy?
Great. What's from 3 in Cameroon, in here in New York?
I want to say that's like elementary school. Don't quote me on that.
I'm never able to, match it or equate it. But so from 3, no, I think it's from 2 actually. From 2 third term holidays. I really was never into watching TV. Videos, if you don't get my attention in the beginning, you lose my attention.
Yeah.
But I felt like books, because I have to read the words, it would hold my attention. So in the summer, on Sundays, when we went to church as a family, my dad would always buy the Sunday paper. Then he would come home, when he's done reading it, he would just put it on the table, and then I'll go get it and flip through. I read the title, if the title is interesting, and I read the article. So that's how I got into reading. So summer of, I want to say from 2 years, my dad gave me the book, The Power of Positive Thinking, by Neil something. Neil Vincent? I think, yes. So he's like, yeah, take this and read. That was my first non-school related book. It took me 3 months to read it, because I was like, but I loved it. So every holiday I got from school, I was looking for a magazine to read, something book-like to read. And then when I came to the U.S., we came here in July, between July and when school started in August. I mean, the excitement of multiple TV channels was great in the beginning, but what I found was that I would constantly flip. I'll flip here, 2 seconds, it's not holding my attention, next one, it wasn't working for me. So I discovered there was a library a walking distance from the house. I don't remember going to a library before then. So I went in there and I was like, wow, this is beautiful. So there was this episode I watched on Oprah where she was interviewing Iyanla Vanzant. The book, I don't remember the book, the title, but it struck my attention. So I went to the library and I looked for that book. I think it's Yesterday I Cried. Yes. Looked for that book, came home, read it, and at the back of the book there were other recommendations. I was like, okay, so I don't have to figure out what to read next. I can, pick here. And that's how I, read until school started. So when school was out, I was looking forward to the next book I could read. So that's really how I got into books. And honestly, books have saved me a lot. Like some of the questions I would ask in, at work or anywhere, people would look at me like, how did you know that? Where did you learn that from? And it's really from books. Like somebody said, books can be your mentor. If you don't, because like I said, I'm an introvert and we're not strike up a conversation off the bat, no. But I feel like books have helped me travel mentally without really having to travel. And I recommend it to anyone who can get their hands on books. And I've had people right back to me and say, oh, this book saved my life. And it's really very, I consider it as therapy for me.
And you actually have an Instagram page dedicated that curates books.
Yep.
And a book club.
Yes.
You guys accepting new members?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
so people
yes,
can find your stuff in the description,
Yeah.
whatever. And so as we wind down, going back to occupational therapy, what is your advice for somebody that's looking to get into it right now, who's interested in it, and how can they navigate to not make the mistakes that you made and to really put themselves for success?
Okay. So first, I would say that you have to like it at the very least, but you have to really love it. Because sometimes, well, people ask me that, how did you end up in this profession as an introvert? Because there was a lot of talking to family members and all of that. So first I would say you have to do your research on what exactly it is about, why you want to do it. You have to have a strong enough why. Because for me, I also grew up with both of my grandparents, maternal and paternal. And as they were getting older, they wanted to be able to maintain some level of independence. So when I got into occupational therapy, I think the first project we had was we went to an assisted living. And we saw how seniors wanted to be able to make a meal. You know, even though they were aging, there are ways that you can show them to safely do it. And I think the one thing that also drew me to occupational therapy is that you can work anywhere and with any population. You can work with kids, you can work in the school system, in the hospital, in the community, in assisted living. You can work anywhere. So I love that flexibility. So yeah, figure out what it is about, have a strong enough why. And I think my strong enough why is in everybody I work with, I either see my youngest brother or my grandparents. So it's a way for me to connect. And I say, okay, if this was my grandparent, how would I, treat them? How would I interact with them? Because there are some days that I could be walking in a hallway and I hear somebody scream, help. And all they really need is a cup of water. Now, is giving out a cup of water occupational therapy? It could be. But that's just a human thing, Would I hand somebody a bottle of water on the street? Yeah. Sometimes they could have dropped the remote control and all they need to really pick it up. So it's really figure out a strong why. And also, if you can, observe an occupational therapy at work, especially with the population that you would like to work with. Because sometimes looking from the outside is like, oh, that is easy. But there is a lot of mental work that goes into it. Like for example, I could hand a patient a toothbrush and I'll just watch to see what they do with it. Some patients will use to brush their hair, but is that the appropriate use of a toothbrush? No. So that's an assessment. But somebody looking from the outside is like, oh, you're just standing there doing nothing, but it's a lot going through my mind. I could hand you a spoon and say, okay, show me what to do with that. It's to eat. But some people will put it in their ear. So it's a lot of mind work. But it also involves a lot of physical work. So figure out your why, do your research, watch somebody at work. And you would have to be your own advocate.
And tell your parents that you get into it.
That's a hard one though, because like I said, 100 years later, people still don't understand what it is. So I feel like if you understand it for yourself, eventually people will come around. And one thing my dad always told me is that, and this is the thing that I threw back to him when he was like, what happened to the doctor or pharmacy? And I was like, well, you always taught us to make our own choices because we get to live with the consequences. So say, for example, I went to med school or pharmacy school. I didn't like it. I'm not going to live the rest of my life blaming you, but I'm living with the consequences. And he was like, well, yeah, I taught you that. So it was really like, you gave me the skills to figure out life. But like I said, I understood that for them, it was more about financial independence. But don't be too financially independent because, you scare the men away.
And
It's what
you
it is.
guys are good now, though.
Oh, I mean, yeah, he would throw jokes like, still go back and get a doctorate degree. And I'm like, my stance on that, because getting a doctorate in occupational therapy is just a title.
Yeah.
It doesn't provide you more financial independence.
Provides you more loans.
Exactly, and I'm not even done paying the ones I got. So it's not. I could grow financially without a doctorate degree, because I have figured out how to go about, the field. But yeah, it's like I said, I love it. I have days where I could pull my hair out because of family members, but yeah, I show up the next day.
That's money. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for sharing.
My pleasure.